Sounds good. Hey, Brandon, with this, with the whole pandemic stuff and everything and recruiting kind of having to swing to sort of the latest version of, online dating, without naming names or anything, but do you have any kind of interesting or quirky or odd things that have kind of gone on this recruiting trail these past few months? You're trying to get to know these kids a little bit without really being able to see them face to face.
Well, it's definitely, new times and new ways of communicating and recruiting. It's definitely taking a different turn from, what the usual spin is. Nothing really new though. I mean, these young people, the crazy thing about it, they're so inclined to technology. They've adjusted very well to Zoom and Zoom meetings. And, we were always kind of FaceTime anyway. I think the biggest thing for them is we got a lot more time on our hands at the house, and so we bug them a lot more than maybe we did back in the past. So with the new rules allowing us to kind of call and FaceTime, really is unprecedented at this time of year, because typically you only get one phone call from April 15th to May 31st. So they've kind of opened it up now where where we kind of communicate with them all the time. And so it's really been, different, but just you have to adjust. And so nothing really quirky. This is how they communicate. Very rarely do young people really just sit and talk on the phone like we do. They FaceTime one another, which is crazy to me because, you'll be sitting in the house and all of a sudden some, recruit just wants to FaceTime you and see. So, you see me run into a different room and making sure everybody's decent. But at the end of the day, that's kind of the craziest thing that's kind of been going on.
Matt Weaver.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
What's up, Dave? How are you, man?
I'm okay. I'm going to ask you about Reese Taylor. Obviously, he came in as a great high school quarterback. His development got kind of sidetracked as a freshman because he had to go to offense a little bit, then got hurt last year in fall camp. What kind of progress have you seen from him as a corner, and how excited are you for this season and for his future there at that position?
I think, really Reese brings some intangible things that a lot of people can't do. Very rarely do you see a guy that can go from playing offense and then 6 months later, 7 months later, transition to a corner and really be effective. He got injured early on in training camp that kind of prevented him from kind of taking off. But the one thing that you see from him is you see a tough guy who understands football. He's a good leader because he communicated, as a quarterback. People respect him because not only does he, back it up on the field, he has the kind of name, the clout that goes along with it. So he's been a guy who's kind of always been in the limelight. He likes competition. He's a tough guy. And what I saw kind of the last, we had 4 practices before we went to spring break, and that's kind of when the pandemic hit. But he is ready, I think, to take off to really be a focal point in the secondary. I think right now we got 3 guys that if we had to play tomorrow, I feel comfortable with going in and playing and helping us, continue the path we were on, last year. So I'm very excited about Reese. The big thing is he's got to make sure that he does a great job of keeping his body healthy. Throughout the season, he had several little just, lingering little things that just kind of happened in the middle of nowhere. It just kind of kept him out from taking that next step. And so, I think with a year of playing corner, and now he's going to have a summer of learning the playbook, and not just learning what corners do, but start to kind of figure out what everybody is doing, where everybody goes. And when you get out a check, what does that mean to everybody else? And I think he's ready to take that step, and I'm expecting him to.
Thanks, Coach.
Zach.
No problem.
Zach, go ahead.
I guess kind of to follow up on that more broadly, I know you've always been a coach who's never been afraid of playing young guys, but this year it feels like you've got a really solid stable of guys with a lot of snaps, whether it be Reese and Jalen, Taiwan, guys that I imagine you feel like you can trust. Is there a little bit of a difference in not that you won't give a young guy a shot, but that you feel like you've got a core group there that you can just sort of plan everything around, saying, I know I can rely on these guys week in, week out, doesn't matter the opponent, doesn't matter the situation. We can start there and then move forward from that foundation.
Well, we surely got a great foundation, but, I think, since you've been covering me and you know kind of how I stand is the best people are going to play. And, that could change from week to week. If you guys, and I told those guys last week, Tywan Mullins had his name all over the paper and the internet, but he knows this, if he doesn't prepare in the right way, in the right manner that has helped him obtain the success, then he has an opportunity to lose his job. And just like he came in last season and he performed at a high level and he took someone's job, he has to understand that same thing that helped elevate him could also be his destruction if he doesn't do the little things it takes to prepare. But to answer your question, we got a great foundation. We got some guys who have been on the football field. They know the checks. They know what it takes to win and in the Big Ten. But also, too, I think, iron sharpens iron. And for those young guys who are coming in, Chris Keys and Lim, they know that if they come in and they push these guys and they're the better player, they're going to play. And it keeps those guys sharp who are here to make sure they can keep that competitive edge. And so that's kind of how I've always been. That's what I've always do. I like competition. But I am very, very satisfied of we're going to have opportunity to start come the fall.
Sammy Jacobs. Go ahead, Sammy. All right, we'll come back to Sammy. Let's go with Rick Bozich.
You're on mute. You're on mute. Got to take your mute off.
Rick, you got to unmute it.
Now can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, sorry about that, Coach. Two things. One is cornerback typically isn't a position where a freshman can come in and make an impact, and Tywan did that last year. Why was he able to do that? And secondly is what more does he need to do to improve this year, and how good can he become?
I think the great thing about Tywan, he comes from a football family, and I think that he was able to do it because, number one, he loves the game. And, I think that he has some siblings. He got one older who plays for the Raiders, and he got a younger one who's going to be really, really good. And it's a competitive family. And so I think growing up, he had that, that deal where I want to be the best Mullen out there. And every one of them possess skills that allow them to be successful thus far. And I think that ultimately down in Florida, football is just kind of at a different level. He started at a young age. He came from a high school that he was well coached, and the competition was at a point where he had to adjust a little bit, but he was able to jump right in and do what he needed to do. So that allowed him to play as a true freshman, along with this football IQ. And what does he need to take the next step? I think ultimately is learn the game of football in a way that understand how coordinators think, understand what the whole playbook entitles, and the same thing. I mean, all those guys are kind of in the same group. When you look at Jalen, when you look at Reese, and you look at Tywan, I teach a lot of these guys to study pictures. And when they see a picture, you make this check. But a lot of times when you're making this check, they don't know what that particular check means to everybody else. So for him to take the next step, he needs to understand, like, when I say this check, this makes the D-line do this. This tells the backer to do this. And so that way he can encompass the whole defense. And so when you're a true freshman, you got to break it down. You can't give him the whole cow. You got to teach him step by step by step. And now I think he's at the point where he wants it and he needs to learn overall D-line play, linebacker fits. And I think that's how he takes his game to the next level. When it comes to just corner, I think just studying film, studying his opponent, understanding, what we do throughout the week as coaches, what all those reports mean and how to read them. And so right now during this time, we're taking time and teaching not only him, but all those guys what reports mean when we give it to them and how do they dissect that to help them out in their particular position. And so that's what he needs to do to take the next step. And that's what we're kind of working on during this time at home and these Zoom meetings.
All right, Sammy is having a microphone issue, so he's asking, what are the top 1 or 2 things you guys need to work on to go to another level at your position, the cornerbacks?
I think number one, we got to do a better job of really just having, when we have an opportunity to get an interception, we have an opportunity to make that defining play. To make it and make it more, even I go back to that Purdue game and Taiwan had a really good game, but he also missed a lot of open field tackles that I think that when it's, third and whatever, and they throw a ball out to the flat and he's in great position, we got to make that tackle, or an opportunity when the ball hits our hands to make a big time interception. We need game changing plays. And I think that's the next thing that we need to step up to take that next step to get that upper echelon of the league day in and week in and week out. And so those are things that I'm just, pushing those guys to do.
All right, Dylan Sin, why don't you go next?
Obviously, you guys play in a league where there are some of the best passing offenses in the country. What kind of challenges does that create for you, and how have you gone about trying to overcome that over the last few years here?
Well, I just think in college football, the way it's kind of going is, every DB across the country, week in and week out, is going through the same issues, and that's how do we stop explosive plays. How do we keep the ball in front of us? How do we make sure that, offenses have to matriculate the ball down the field and not get chunk plays? And so, in this league, it's the same. You have some, and especially on our side of the conference, we're going to play, 4 or 5 teams are going to be in the top 10. And they're going to have great skill guys. They're going to have great receivers. They're going to have good quarterbacks. They're going to have top running backs. And the thing about, the Big Ten is, you look at a team like Wisconsin. They can run the ball, they can throw the ball, and they make your corners do everything. They're going to make you cover down the field, but also, too, you're going to have to get in there in times and tackle. And so the biggest challenge is keeping our guys healthy throughout the season, making sure that mentally, week in and week out, we're there. Because ultimately, at the end of, towards the end of the season in November, when, you're battling to go to a bowl game and things like that, it's really mental. Everybody's tired, everybody's hurt. And, in the past, at certain times in the fourth quarter, towards the end of the season, it would kind of wear down. And so as we create depth, keeping our guys mentally and physically healthy in the fourth quarter is going to be the key in the Big Ten, because you guys know as the weather change, especially in this league, you got to be able to tackle and you got to be able to cover. And so those are things that we just keep harping on our guys to do. And it starts right now. It starts while these guys are at home. And I think that's going to give any team in the country the competitive advantage right now. Which individuals right now on their own are doing what they're supposed to do when they don't have a strength and condition coach, over the top of them, telling them what to do. We send them workouts and we do all those type of things just like everybody else in the country. But the things that you're doing now will dictate whether or not you have success in, November. So those are things that we're working on right now, and just making sure the importance of our guys as, social distancing, staying away, doing little things, school. Those are things that just we have to do right now to make sure that we have a competitive advantage towards the end of the season.
All right, Stefan, last one.
Brandon, I was just wondering, you were talking a little bit with Reese there about some of the intangibles that he could maybe work on to make that next step. I mean, that's a lot of stuff that might come from reps and playing snaps. How are you guys trying to adjust to that now and learn that aspect of it while being away from the field?
Well, the only thing you can really do right now is we have a lot of one-on-one meetings. And so what I try to do is, because we have the time, instead of having group meetings, I try to specialize to each individual player. So if each player has a 20-minute meeting and we work on the things that, they need to work on. So for Reese, we're going to work on checks and we're going to work on reading routes. We're going to do things like that to make sure that we specialize and we develop him towards his game. And I think that allows, this time of year right now allows us to do that. Those guys are kind of sitting at home for most of the day. And so I can kind of dive in where I wouldn't be able to do that, typically in May. I would be on the road recruiting this particular point, but right now we can dive in and I can look at just Reese's game. We can look at the clips that he had throughout the season the good things and the bad things, and work on those. And he could just look at himself with a one-on-one conversation. And now he doesn't feel like, he can ask me the questions that maybe he didn't ask during the season that just kind of go towards him, you know what I mean, and specialize towards his game. So that's kind of what we're going to try to do right now. That's kind of what I've been doing kind of in these Zoom meetings. That's really all you can do right now is kind of get with those guys one-on-one and try to get with those guys to understand that how do we take the next step.
All right, Brandon, thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
All right, guys, appreciate you. We'll see you guys soon. Stay safe.
All right, Jason, you good to go?
Yep, good to go.
All right, guys, when you're asking Jason, why don't you remind him, since he's only met some of you guys once, who you are and who you work for, okay? We'll start with Tom Brew.
Hey, Jason, this is Tom Brew, Sports Illustrated, Indiana. How you doing?
Doing great. How's everything going?
It's going great, thanks. Hey, you got here and everything kind of got short-circuited on you quickly. Can you just talk a little bit with us about, how you've been going about trying to get to know these kids in your room and their games, their personalities and such? And, and this, I'm sure it has to be kind of awkward. You only had a little bit of time with them, face to face.
When I first got here, one of the things that I did, I brought each guy in and set up like an individual meeting with each guy. And so we sat down and tried to get to know them as a person, just outside of football. And even though we only had 4 practices, I was still able to spend one-on-one time with them. So once I went through the whole group, then we had a second meeting where we just sit down and just talk. So I've had several occasions while everyone was in town to sit down and meet with them, and then we constantly talking to them every day on the phone and things like that. So we're still building those relationships.
Matt Weaver.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Matt?
Yeah, I'm sorry. With Indiana 247 Sports, Bigs.com. You talked about you had the 4 practices. I know it's obviously not a lot of time, but just in those 4 workouts, kind of what was your feedback on what you got to work with, your position group, and what do you like about them, and how you think they can do for you guys?
I think I'm pleased with the guys that I have in the room. I think the staff they've done a great job of just recruiting and bringing in the right guys that we need to run the system. In those 4 days, I did. It was a short spring, but I did get to see. I think have an athletic group of guys. The biggest thing that I'm stressing with them is to just be the quarterback. The safeties in this defense, those are the guys that make the checks and get everybody lined up. And just talking to Coach Shelby earlier, it's their job to communicate to the corners and the Huskies and things like that to make sure everybody's on the same page. So what I'm trying to get those guys to be is just to be that quarterback and to be more vocal. Some guys are more vocal than others. Just like Devon, he's not a vocal leader. He's one of those guys that sort of lead by example. So I'm trying to get him to come out of his shell because everyone they look up to him, but I'm trying to get him to be that more vocal guy and to be the leader of the group and things like that. And to make more plays. We have opportunity to make plays in those 4 practices. We had an opportunity to make plays. We just got to take advantage of the opportunity when we have a chance to make those plays.
Zach Osterman.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I'm Zach Osterman with the Indianapolis Star. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm sitting here in my son's playroom. That's why the circus tent is over my shoulder. Go ahead. Sorry.
I said there's no problem. I have 3. I have 3 that's in school, so we're downstairs trying to homeschool them and all that kind of stuff. So I understand.
Yeah, mine's 2 years old, so it's mostly just keeping the floor more than anything else.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you a couple guys. You got a couple guys in that safety room that have moved positions. Jamar Johnson's played in a couple different places. I think Coach Womack talked about him being more permanently back at safety. Raheem Lane maybe moving there, giving you guys more coverage options at safety. Just how do you see kind of, I guess, the diversity of skills that you're going to have from guys who've maybe played other positions, who've moved around a little bit in college, and wherever you kind of fit them in, maybe they bring a more holistic kind of view of the defense with them because they have played at maybe a couple of other positions throughout their careers.
I think it actually helps them because when like Jamar was a Husky for us. So the Husky, most of the time, he's always aligned to the field and he's always working with the field corner and the rover. And we moved him to free safety. So now he's on the other side of the defense. He's working with the stinger linebacker, the boundary corner, and things like that. So I think it expands just like his football IQ, and it helps him to understand the defense as a whole. Now, there's still some learning, to be done because it's a new position. But I think it's going to be really good. It's going to be really good for him down the road just because it's going to help him get a better understanding of the defense. And when you understand the defense, there's times when I can be aggressive, I can take a chance, I can go jump this route, or, hey, right now I'm in man-to-man and we're blitzing, I can't be as aggressive. I have to make sure that, if I drive on this route, I have to be 100% that it's going to be a pass breakup or interception, or I'm going to tackle this guy. Because if I miss the tackle, it could be a touchdown. So I think that's going to help him. Raheem, safety, and he's sharp. He's smart. He has I've been, in his defense, our corners, we ask him to play a lot of press man, and so it's tough. They have a tough job because every snap is playing press man, and you're just erasing that guy outside and moving him back to safety, where now he's more involved in the scheme and the coverage aspect and making checks. He's picked up on it. He's picked up on it really well, and he's put his time in. Even before we all left campus, he would swing by my office and we would meet and we would watch tape and things like that. So I'm pleased with both of those guys, and still have some work to do, but I think it's going to be really good for the team down the road.
Thanks.
All right, Sammy's mic is still down. So Sammy Jacobs from the Hoosier Huddle asks how you've been working with Brandon Shelby and Casey Teagarden in the secondary.
I tell you, it's been really good. Because being a new guy coming in, you're trying to get a feel for the guys in your room, and also the guys that are other players that are in the secondary. What's their strengths and what's their weaknesses and things like that. Brandon and Casey, they've been great, and they've for the most part just welcomed me with open arms, and I can pick up the phone and call either one of them. They'll help me in this. I actually enjoy it. It's like three guys functioning as one. And in the back end, we're 4-2-5, so we have 5 DBs playing at the same time. And I think what's going to help us take that next step from being good to great is that now we have more eyes on those guys. So now we can actually watch the little things. And I think between the three of us, nobody has an ego. So if I see something that the Husky did, I may let Casey know. Casey will see something that the safety did, he'll let me know. Vice versa with Shelby, And so it's been good. It's been really great.
Rick Bozich.
Yeah, hi, Coach. Rick Bozich, WDRB. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. WDRB in Louisville. I got the White Sox hat because Jeff and Mark Deal and I are all White Sox fans. So my question is, you have a previous relationship with Coach Allen. You've worked with him before. What was the attraction to working with him again? And what do you think his calling card is as a coach?
So yeah, Coach Allen and I, we actually met. It was in 2012. At the time, I was at Oklahoma State, and Coach Allen was at Ole Miss, and we both recruited. We had the same area in Dallas, Texas. And so we were out watching a spring practice, and we met each other. And the next year, the secondary job opened at Ole Miss, and Coach Allen told Coach Freeze about me. I came in, interviewed, and we ended up working together at Ole Miss, and enjoyed working with him. We recruited together. The Dallas area, we tag team on some guys, and worked really well, and ended up getting some good players for us there at Ole Miss. And one thing that I can, like the people, anyone that's worked with Coach Allen, the one thing that everybody says is that he hasn't changed. The person that he was as a position coach, he's that same guy, even though he's the head coach and he has more on his plate. You know, he hasn't changed. I think the thing that in recruiting that's really helping us in recruiting with the parents and the recruits when they get a chance to talk to them on the phone, or we've been doing Zoom like meetings with recruits and things like that. The thing that the parents and the recruits fall in love with is that he's a genuine guy. They know that he truly cares about their son, and it's more than just football. And that's why, you know, recruiting's taking off and we're having the success that we're having. And but that's his thing. He's not trying to be somebody that he's not. You know, he's just Coach Allen, and the recruits love it. The moms and dads love it, and it's been great.
Dylan Sin.
Coach Shelby, Dylan Sin from the Journal-Gazette in Fort Wayne. Coach Shelby talked about needing to create more defining plays, create turnovers as a way for this passing defense to take a big step forward this year. How do you go about doing that and creating those type of plays?
The first thing you have to do is, you know, when you understand what you're doing and the reason for us running a certain call, or, you know, Coach Womack calling a certain defense, I think it gives you more confidence. So that's what we tried to take advantage of during this time. Like Coach Shelby was saying, we're spending a lot of time just teaching our players on just how to watch film, you know, how to study routes, how to study formations, and how to study personnel, because every wide receiver is not the same. Every wide receiver has a strength and a weakness, and going into each week, you have to know what's the strength and weakness of that wide receiver or that tight end or even that quarterback, you know, and things like that. What throws can the quarterback make? Can he throw quick game to the field? Or is he only throwing quick game into the boundary? You know, does he have an arm strong enough to throw the deep ball? Is the wide receiver fast enough to blow the top off the coverage? And so trying to get them to understand all of that. And like I said, and understanding the defense. And when they get a good understanding of the defense, I think they'll understand there are certain calls that can make, or Coach Womack can make, that will allow them to be aggressive and to go jump routes and go make that play. And like the one thing that we stressed this spring, we had an opportunity where we got our hands on some balls this spring, and we didn't quite come down with the interception. But in coaching, what you emphasize is what you get. So we're emphasizing, hey, make the interception when you have a chance, cause the turnover when you have a chance. And I think and they've embraced it, and they're working hard, and we'll keep working ball drills when we get back, and we're allowed to get with the guys. And so when they're in those positions to make those plays, they'll make them. But that's the biggest thing. In the back end, in the secondary, you can change games by making plays. And if you get an interception, now you're still in a possession away from the offense. And so, but yeah, he's exactly right on that.
Stefan.
Hey, Jason, Stefan Krajisnik, Indianapolis Star. You mentioned a little bit earlier there and in your introductory press conference as well about 2013, working with a lot of these IU guys back at Ole Miss. What do you kind of remember from working with all of them there, and how has that helped ease your transition into working at IU?
The biggest thing I remember when we were at Ole Miss in 13, working with the guys that we have on staff, no one had an ego. No one had an ego. We didn't have any hidden agendas. It was everybody's focus was to do your job so that we could benefit the team. In recruiting, just like we're doing now, we tag team recruiting. If there's if there's a defensive back that I really like and I'm recruiting, and say if he's in Coach Hurd's area, then Coach Hurd is recruiting him just as hard as I'm recruiting him. And you have Coach Allen's recruiting him just as hard. And so I think just having no one having any egos, and everybody just putting all their time and energy and working to help the team achieve its ultimate goal. I think that's the biggest thing that I remember from Ole Miss, and that's what I see. That's what I see here in Indiana.
All right, Jason. Zach has one more. This will be our last one. Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. This is kind of a bigger picture question in general, but you've coached secondary in different ways, different positions in the secondary, and that feels like a place where more and more you see coaching staffs putting 2-3 bodies. I mean, do you think that's almost just kind of, in terms of coaches I'm talking about, do you think that's almost just kind of necessary, as complex as, spread offenses and no huddle offenses, tempo offenses have become, that it's the part of the defense that maybe needs the most attention because you're going to be having to deal with such, sort of complex schemes from modern offenses and the way they try to attack you in the pass game now?
Yeah, you're exactly right. You have to have a lot of eyes back there in the secondary, because when you think about the secondary, you have your D-line coach, right? And he's watching 4 guys, 5 guys, but all of the D linemen are right there together in the box. All right, you have your linebackers. Your linebackers are right there together. But when you coach the secondary, you may have 2 guys on this side of the field and the other 2 guys on that side of the field, right? And you can sit there and say you watching all 4 of them at the same time, but it's hard, because what you want to do as a secondary coach is, if the play goes to the left, all right, I want to make sure that guy on the right-hand side that's opposite the play, that he's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. Because if he knows he's being watched, then he's going to do it right. So when the ball comes to him, he's going to be in position to make that play. So as we're watching tape and we're grading tape, Mike may throw the ball to the left, and I'm watching his backside safety to make sure he's not cheating. I'm watching his backside safety. Okay, you're supposed to be man-to-man on this guy. He ran an out. Hey, take that out. Don't go running over here to where the ball was thrown. Do your job first, then go to the ball. And once they know that they're being watched on every single play, that makes them do all the little things right. But you have to have those eyes, especially in practice, in order to see them, in order to see all those guys, because in practice goes so fast. We're working against the clock, and we're trying to get those reps in. And so you have to have those eyes in order to make sure you're seeing everything, because I like to correct it as soon as it happens. So if a guy makes a mistake, you correct it right then there's a chance he probably won't make that mistake again the next time that play comes up. But that's what I think that's the common thing. But just because of, and like you said, the offenses, they're doing so much, especially with the RPOs and spread tempo and things like that. You just have to have that extra set of eyes just to make sure that you're coaching the little things up. Because if they're going to do the little things, and if guys do the little things right all the time, then we're going to make big plays, and we're going to make the plays, especially when it counts.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
All right, great. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Thank you all. Stay safe.